The big danger we see is that we reach the moment already that it's difficult to differentiate from what is a content created by us humans and what content is created by machine.
You are listening to CEO Perspectives, a podcast by the Conference Board.
Welcome to this episode of CEO Perspectives, a signature series by the Conference Board. CEO Perspectives are conversations that take an objective, nonpartisan look at a range of subjects that matter most to business leaders. To help make sense of these topics, we sit down with thought leaders and do what we do best at the Conference Board, provide trusted insights for what's ahead. I'm Steve Odland, the CEO of the Conference Board and the host of this podcast series. And in today's conversation, we're going to discuss so-called killer AI. What is it? What it means? And where is that going? Joining me today are Nathan Summers and Dr. Sergio Coronado. They're the authors of a recent report entitled On Defining Killer AI that introduces a framework that can help assess the potential for harm from AI. Nathan Summers is currently an AI research analyst with the Luxembourg Tech School, and Dr. Coronado is a founder of the Luxembourg Tech School and an assistant professor at the University of Luxembourg. Welcome, Nathan and Sergio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I could just ask both of you briefly to tell us a little bit about your experience, backgrounds, and how did you get into AI?
Yeah, so I've always been, for as long as I can remember, really interested in computers, like science fiction growing up. So when I went to do university and then pursue my master's, I knew I wanted it to be with something with computers. So my undergraduate bachelor's degree was in cognitive science, which sort of introduced me to the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning in particular. And then in my master's, I was able to build on that with more practical sort of business-focused solutions. And then now I'm able to learn about ways that we can use this technology effectively and keep it safe.
And that was Nathan Summers. And so Dr. Coronado, your background and how did you get into AI?
So first, thank you, Steve, for inviting us to share our work. Myself, a little bit older than Nathan, he didn't say that, but I have 35 years experience because I stopped counting at the 35, so make it easy to say 35. I have the opportunity to work in many sectors: banking, sport, retail, education, defense, and of course, research become a kind of always parallel passion of my life. And has also this need of learning. I study software engineering, electrical engineering, industrial engineering, psychology, education, and many other things, not to tell people I have all these degrees, but because I want to understand things. And now leading to why AI, it happened actually in 2015. I saw a fundamental change when DeepMind showed this algorithm they created that was able to learn to play the Atari games by itself, And then I say, wow, this is really now starting to happen. It was the beginning of machine learning as we know it today. And then I immediately signed up for a Coursera course on machine learning and deep dive myself into the tech, really, really deep into the coding and so on. And then I thought, I have no time to do all this. the new generation will take over. And then I created the Luxembourg Tech School the year after, where we work with young people, teenagers, and a little bit older like Nathan, to understand the digital technology evolution, to help them to learn by us learning this technology. So it's not only AI, we also do quantum, robotics, financial technology, and many other things to trigger our brain. And lately we started to do, actually 2-3 years, we started to do research. And this is actually our first paper when we took the decision to highlight a very important issue that we think that is in front of us and with killer AI.
Okay, so before we get into the specifics of the dangers, just help our audience understand your definition of AI. Nathan, you want to go first?
So AI is a really broad term. Obviously, right now, a lot of what's referred to as AI is like machine learning, where algorithms can basically fine-tune their parameters, their algorithms to some extent based on training data. It sort of flips the paradigm of traditional programming on its head. And it's shown that it is capable of some pretty incredible things. For our purposes, we're looking more so at AI systems that can lead to harm. So in our paper, we seek out to define killer AI because, we need a definition before we can start talking about about how to prevent it and mitigate its dangers. So we define that by any sort of system that employs artificial intelligence that can directly lead to physical harm or death. Now, there's two important things that definition hinges on, is that we don't really distinguish between whether the system was designed to cause that harm. So like in an autonomous weapon system, which was explicitly designed to cause harm, or whether that's a virtual system like some sort of social media algorithm or something that doesn't have direct physical interaction with the world. And then the other issue therein is how it directly can lead to physical harm or death. And that's a little bit more complicated, but we can get into that a little bit later.
Okay, Dr. Coronado, do you want to add to the definition of AI?
Yes, sure. I think, to very simplistic explaining, AI is when we try to use computers to replicate human capabilities or skills. Self-driving a car is an example when we try to create an AI, replicating how we are able to drive a car to follow certain rules that we set up, plus the power of the machine. So we say that an AI, we're able to do that because we replicate these human capabilities. And of course, we can see that today in a more advanced systems when they are able to basically chat or write or generate content as humans do. So the basic concept, I would say, is the ability for a computer to basically replicate human skills.
Okay, so now you've written this paper, Nathan, on killer AI, and certainly it's provocative when you start thinking about it, because I don't think anyone's talked about about AI killing people. It certainly happens in science fiction films, and in the context of thinking about sentience with AI, which is a long way off. But I think your paper talks about things that are much closer to home. Talk a little bit about what aspects of AI can cause harm.
Well, it's hard to know exactly what, because there is a lot more research that we need. Currently, we know some of the aspects that can cause harm. So AI, as I mentioned earlier, it's trained on a lot of data. So if there's like biases in that data, those biases are going to be reinforced in the behavior of the AI system. So that's one of the big dangers that I'm personally quite interested in, and one that we touch on a little bit in the paper as well. There's also a more sort of nefarious danger where you have people with bad intentions that can make use of this efficiency that AI gives us to sort of do work that would have taken them a lot longer, or with a much larger team in a fraction of the time, with a fraction of the manpower.
You described it just a moment ago as physical systems and virtual systems. Physical systems is where, there are actual weapons that are autonomous. Okay. But the virtual systems, I think, is what you were just referring to, which is where there's harm done by either content or by, things that have been engineered. So talk a little bit more about that.
So with the virtual systems, which is really what I find the more interesting side of this, because it's a little bit more complicated, it's quite trivial to see how physical systems can cause harm. But the case that we talk about is the case of this young girl in England who in 2014 took her own life because of harmful content that she was fed over social media. And nobody was intentionally feeding her this content, but the content that she was shown had such a negative impact on her mental state that she eventually took her own life. And I think that this is a side of AI that we don't really talk about or think about too much, but it's something that's becoming much more prevalent. More recently, there was a similar case of a Belgian man, I believe, and there are all sorts of other cases of engineers, AI engineers, talking to chatbots and being told to like leave their wife, or other such, sort of weird artifacts like that come out.
Yeah, so this is AI that is being used virtually, as you said, through primarily social media, but also other, in other electronic forms, that is impacting the way people think about themselves or about others, and I guess essentially causing them to act in a way that's a danger to themselves or others. Did I summarize that accurately?
Yes, yes, correct. Is that we are starting to engage with these algorithms. Yeah? That's the way to describe. We are starting to engage cognitive with those algorithms, and we don't know how that works. We have not been really developed and thought about what are the risks and consequences to do that. The technology has been just thrown out of there, and we see, of course, we see the value. Huh? Let's not forget that we see a lot of value on this technology and this interaction on this, for example, recommendation algorithms, which try to accelerate your decision and save you time. But at the same time, some of those recommendation algorithms might start throwing you content which is not necessarily good for your current, let's say, cognitive moment, and then you might take a more drastic decision. So that is what we see signs that this is becoming very, very important. And we came with this definition about the potential of an AI creating harm or death, which is the killer AI.
Yeah, and it can happen directly or it can happen indirectly. I mean, you talked also about the impact of these virtual AI systems on political propaganda, for instance, and manipulation of opinion, and putting, electing people who are bad people, but are being positioned through AI tools. So that kind of comes around to this whole political agenda manipulation that happens by certain state and non-state actors towards others.
Correct. Yes. I mean, one of the characteristics of this tool is the power of the tool itself. You use our internet, basically, when billions of people is connected, and then use this as a huge, fast channel to propagate. And then, as you rightfully say, can propagate propaganda, wrong information or manipulate content and a speed that the humans cannot, discern or make the right choice about that content. And the other characteristic we see in the current development is that the content is very realistic. It looks correct and convincing, and sometimes you have to make your judgment, but, is the population ready to make judgment to every single content, or just bombarding, rapidly with something that looks correct and completely valid?
Yeah, and it's hard. These deepfake videos, as you said, and a lot of this content is just it's not discernible from the normal stuff that's out there. It's so good these days. So therefore, what is the truth, right?
Yeah, correct. The big danger we see is that we reach the moment already that it's difficult to differentiate from what is a content created by us humans and what content is created by machine, the synthetic content. So now it becomes so difficult that we are trying to, create algorithms to detect what is really, what is not real.
Yeah, and this is before you even get to sentience, where you've got machines
correct
thinking like human, quote unquote, thinking like human beings. These are human beings using these tools in order to manipulate and create these things. But ultimately, it gets back to the danger, and hence your title of this, which is Killer AI. Some of this stuff is actually killing people, right?
Yeah, so we talk about the specific incidents with the Molly Russell case in the paper, where it was the inquest in the UK was found that the social media algorithms were responsible. So you could make the argument that, and we do make the argument that it is already directly killing people. Now, there are more hypothetical sort of ways that this could change. I think we talk about the chemical weapon example in the paper as well. So already killing people, I think we're just sort of seeing the beginning of maybe what could happen as far as the dangers of AI.
Yeah, you're seeing an increase in the suicide rate, particularly among people who are engaged in social media, and you just don't know what is driving that. There's no way to directly track whether that is killer AI doing it or it's other things, but there's a correlation here.
Yeah. So and that is our point. Our point is that this have to be looked. We have to research this because we see the signs that can happen or is already happening, and we don't know to what extent this is, and it continue to evolve as the technology continue to evolve. So where are we going? So this is why we said, listen, there is this problem in front of us, and we need to do something about it.
We've discussed killer AI and how it can be dangerous to society. Next, we're going to talk about ways that we can mitigate the consequences of AI. We're going to take a short break and be right back.
Are you ready to transform your business and stay ahead of the competition? Artificial intelligence is quietly reshaping the global economy, optimizing manufacturing processes, and transforming how users interact with popular platforms. Harnessing the power of AI can exponentially enhance your business's effectiveness and efficiency. However, navigating the risks associated with this transformative technology is critical. Privacy, integrity, the economy, and humanity are all at stake. That's why the Conference Board is your go-to resource for the expertise and foresight you need to leverage AI to its fullest potential and make strategic moves that propel your business forward. Unlock the possibilities AI offers your business. Visit tcb.org/AI today to access trusted insights for what's ahead and guidance on navigating the AI transformation.
Welcome back to CEO Perspectives. I'm your host, Steve Odland from the Conference Board, and I'm joined today by Nathan Summers and Dr. Sergio Coronado, who have written a paper talking about killer AI. Okay, so let's go back to this notion of virtual versus physical AI systems. Is one more dangerous than the other in your point of view?
Let me start myself. It's not that one is more dangerous than the other one. When we talked about AI, we're talking about a piece of software, an algorithm, which can be virtual. I mean, it's always virtual. It's a piece of software, and then it can be embedded in a physical environment. Okay, like a robotics platform that can interact. So it's not that there is one or the other. Is that we have an AI. And then we have the notion of how humans can interact with AI. So we can interact physically through a machine, or we can interact virtually through our basically language, eyes, and listening. Okay. So that is the notion of course, there are differences when we talked about the danger or the harm, because it's not the same. I mean, it's very obvious when you are harmed physically. Okay, because you harm your physical body, that would you are harmed from the virtual system, which is mental, which is harder to analyze and define.
Okay, and so as part of the solution, you certainly have done a good job of calling people's attention to this issue, and hopefully people will take heed and begin to think about the unintended consequences of AI. But you've also called for government involvement and regulation. What would you like to see happen from the government?
So I think that a good blueprint sort of is to look at the EU AI Act that is currently being discussed and implemented. So they outline risk categories for AI based on their use case. So there's some that they find completely unacceptable, such as the use of AI for social credit scoring, and then for like manipulation is what they call mental manipulation. So like toys that say horrible things to children to sort of mess with their mentality. I think that could be broadened a little bit to include some of these social media algorithms as well, personally. But I think that that's a good starting point. Obviously, it would look different in the US, but I think that sort of establishing what aspects of our society we're okay with handing over to these machines and which ones we would prefer to sort of keep a more human touch in, I think is a really good starting point that we should look at in legislation.
Dr. Coronado, any thoughts?
Yes, I think we need to change the way legislation is developed because of the speed as this technology is happening. So we see that products are brought, I would call it immature, very quickly to the market, and then we have millions adopting them in minutes. And this was not even thought about. I mean, the regulator and legislators have no clue about this tech, so, and the tech is already out. So we have to find a way to change that process, because the technology is already in the hands of the end user by the time the regulator trying to figure out what is this. So we need to find a way that the regulator is kind of sitting with the product development and researchers and vice versa, because it's two-side story. The science, the developers and researchers and the industry need to understand and take their own responsibility that, listen, you cannot just throw that out to the mass if you have to understand what is there and share potential risk and with regulators,
Yeah. Now, so are you thinking about the requirements for regulation at a country level, or, does this rise to sort of a UN level where people, try to adopt consistent rules around the globe?
Well, I mean, I will not say that would be utopia if we manage to get the world together in one subject. But at least we try to motivate the individual governments need to take an action. Of course, collective will be better, and we have other examples in other domains like international and humanitarian law that can also apply to these systems. We should also implement the systems, and researchers should understand and read and try to implement the international humanitarian law when they are doing their research, at the same time. So that is this change that I meant. So it's not only the government that need to take their own lead and try, of course, to team up with others. We should not reinvent the wheel. If we have quite progress on the EU Act, others should try to take it and build on top of that and then share, given the complexity and the effort that takes to reach consensus, because some of the big challenge on regulation is that we reach consensus that this is good for all, not only the user but also the industry, because at the same time we love the technology. It's not that the reason we push this work is because we want the technology to be successful by mitigating the risk or developing the safeguards. So this is why we need every player to try to contribute, and the governments, of course, is the prime responsibility is that.
Yeah, and so what role does business play in that? Because the business community is important, and they are a prime user of this new technology.
Yeah, I mean the role is fundamental because they don't have an interest for this to go wrong. They don't want to be in the news and say, "Oh, you are the first killer AI." So of course they have a clear financial incentive for good. It sounds strange that the technology is not creating harm, because this is not the intention. You don't want to. I mean, Tesla doesn't want to have the full autonomous self-driving. Start killing people on crossing the street. That's because then the product will you have to close down financially. So this is a prime interest on the industry to invest in the research and also work with regulators to make the technology safe, but safe on day one, because at the moment it's not the case. At the moment the technology is thrown out and nobody knows what the behavior of the technology is.
Okay, now on the flip side, I think over time we've seen over and over again that there are unintended consequences to government involvement and regulation and so forth. What are some potential unintended consequences here?
Yeah, I mean, government is tricky because, especially in this domain, because most of the government basically they don't know, they don't understand this technology. I always call AI rocket science, and there are not many rocket scientists. So that's a big challenge. That how you regulate something you don't know. So yes, there are clear unintended consequences that you over-regulate it, and in one part of the world, while other part of the world is still developing. So so then the competitive you will be trapped there because you over-regulate it, so it's not developing anymore. Because you just kind of like you banned that. What happened with ChatGPT at the beginning in the schools, they just banned. No, you cannot use it. Well, it's already there. It's too late. So you have to catch up. So governments have this challenge that they might tend to over-regulate, and then you will lose competitive, and you cannot even develop the safety safeguard because you cannot even develop the technology.
Well, and you could drive it all underground, and you could. By over-regulating, you could limit the productive and peaceful uses and drive it to more nefarious use. I mean,
correct.
I mean, it could go anywhere, but this is like the wild, wild west all over again. It's a brand new area. It's captured everybody's imagination, but beyond that, there now are tools at hand. There are apps you can download on your phone and begin to use these tools, so they're more accessible than ever before.
Yes, and even beyond that, from the development point of view, you have the many open source models by now. So it's not that the user can use it, it's also the developers. They can create their own versions, which could also, and examples are there for content generation for child pornography. This is there, okay? So you start having this ecosystem, going from the good and the bad at the same time, with no regulation.
Yeah. Wonderful points. Now, Nathan, you've also talked in the paper about the cause for optimism around AI. Share with the audience, what you meant by that, beyond the obvious.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we talk about a couple of things in the paper that are really exciting about this technology. So currently already they're using it to diagnose medical conditions faster, to develop pharmaceutical drugs. It's being used as sort of a co-pilot, so it's not replacing doctors in a way, but it helps them sort of make their decisions faster, gives them maybe a second opinion in a lot of the thing in their medical diagnoses. It's also been very effective in the business world as well. Tasks that used to take hours can now be done in minutes. So in general, just this huge leap in efficiency is happening is being enabled because of AI. And through that, we're going to have, it's extremely plausible that we as a society could have more time to focus on higher level tasks. So more creativity, more editorial, more sort of less grunt work, essentially, that can be offloaded onto machines. And similar to the way that sort of the Industrial Revolution offloaded a lot of physical manual labor onto machines, we can offload lower level cognitive tasks onto machines now, which is, I think, a really exciting direction that we're going in. And I think there's a lot of cause for optimism around what we can do with all of that extra time.
Yeah. And if you think about this in the way, I don't mean to reduce it to a mere software program, but if you just think about the way that Microsoft Office and some of these basic tools took the PC from, a basic, a box, a paperweight, and made it a productive tool. This AI tools then, creates that on steroids. It really advances invention, innovation, productivity in not only the medical fields and health areas, but virtually every area you can think of, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. One of the areas I see is the biggest impact is education. Yeah. Have so much content there that you cannot digest that now you have, for example, ChatGPT asking to summarize content, that then you look the essence and then you dig down on the areas that you are interested in. So it creates a different way of learning and processing content. It's not about trying to process more content that your brain can, but it's to be more efficient in the content or the knowledge that you want to develop, for example. So this is something we see with our teenager students, because we asked them recently, do you use ChatGPT, do you cheat with it? And they say, no, we have so much to learn that we throw there, we get summarized for the exam. That's what we need, what is the essence of this concept? So I was shocked when I asked the question. It was supposed to be fun about cheating or not. And then they were really telling me, no, this is, something for us very useful. We summarize, preparing the exams, and like a co-pilot basically to study.
Okay, so Nathan, is it true that you wrote this paper using ChatGPT?
No, I had some help on the outline. I will concede that.
I knew it.
But the most of it is the vast majority of it is myself and Sergio.
Dr. Sergio Coronado, Nathan Summers, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great. We really appreciate the time and the interest to be in your show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
And thanks to all of you for listening into CEO Perspectives. Every week I'll be joined by prominent thought leaders to provide insights on the issues of our time. We'll cover leading topics in economics, geopolitics, AI, and more. Please share CEO Perspectives with your colleagues, with your friends, with every chatbot you know. I'm Steve Odland, and this series has been brought to you by the Conference Board.
You have been listening to CEO Perspectives, a podcast by the Conference Board.